Thank you. Sound, thank you. Yes, hello, thank you. Hi, yeah, we took a wrong turn at the cows, so just a bit late. Thank you for bearing with us. And I want to say that I'm extremely happy to be at this event. It's a real honor to me. I was unaware of this event until the organizers asked us, me and Kimiko Ishizaka, to come. And I have never seen such a wonderful lineup of presentations and topics in my life. It's really brilliant, and it's quite an honor for me to be here. Who am I? I trained first 20 years of my life as a professional musician, and I moved to Germany about 15 years ago and started my life in a German orchestra. Found out very quickly that it was a one-way street to alcoholism and unhappiness, and discovered along the way open source programming. So I successfully switched my careers at some point, studying Java programming on the train on the way to rehearsal in the orchestra, and during the rests, and at the break, and after the concert. And after a short career of proprietary Java programming, I discovered open source, and in particular, I discovered a system called Drupal, which forced me to learn PHP against my will, and I've been doing that ever since, for 11 years now. So that's me in the upper left-hand corner talking at DrupalCons in funny suits, and that's me in the lower right-hand corner, talking about music. So it's come full circle, and I want to explain to you how a musician who became an open source programmer brought open source back to music, or is at least in the process of trying to do that. It's not a single-handed effort, but I want to tell you a little bit about a project that I did last year with my wife called the Open Goldberg Variations. And then I want to tell you a little bit about music notation and technology. And I want to ask the question, why can't the internet read music? And after that, I'd like to talk a little bit about the business model of recording music, because that's what the Open Goldberg project addressed in part, is the licensing and rights holding of music that is produced by crowdfunding. And after that, I just want to tell you what comes next for our project and the exciting plans that we have, including an hour after this session finishes, Kimiko Ishizaka on the main stage presenting a concert of the music of Johann Sebastian Bach and Frédéric Chopin. Hope to see you all there. So, what was, in fact, the Open Goldberg Variations project? So it was the collaboration between a pianist, Kimiko Ishizaka, a software music notation software company called Musescore, which is an open source project by the same name, as well as a company that backs that open source project. It was a collaboration with IMSLP, the largest collection or library of public domain recordings and scores on the internet. Who knows IMSLP? Okay, IMSLP, check it out. It's great to download free stuff. Kickstarter, of course, the crowdfunding website. And we picked up along the way some extra exciting partners. On your far left, Bösendorfer, the premier exquisite piano manufacturer of the highest quality, highest caliber instruments. Who knows Bösendorfer? They decided to sponsor the project by sending us an instrument. Anne-Marie Sylvestre, this wonderful woman from Montreal in the middle, she saw the project and volunteered to be the producer for it, doing all of the editing and the tone meistering. And then finally, we were able, through the help of the Kickstarter funding, to record Bach's Goldberg Variations in the Teldex studio in Berlin, one of the premier studios, and we gave the entire thing away under the Creative Commons 0 license. So, as you know, that means that it's in the public domain from day one. And that was the essence of the project, setting Bach free. Along the way, we picked up another unexpected partner, a company called Grin Verlag in Munich, Germany, who does print-on-demand course notes and lectures, decided they wanted to start publishing music, and they decided to print on paper for sale the Open Goldberg Variations. Now, I'll let the cognitive dissonance sink into your brains here. There's a company out there who volunteered to take something that's in the public domain, something that Henle, Bärenreiter, Peters, Boozy and Hawkes all publish in copyrighted versions, and they decided that it was worth it for them to publish that as well on real paper with real physical costs, you know, where shipping is involved and stuff like that. Something that essentially says, please make photocopies of this and share it with your friends. Turn somebody you know into a new fan of Bach today. It says that. So that was really cool to have a real for-profit company get behind the project and decide to print the score we made on paper. So what did we do with that open source, that public domain recording of the Goldberg variations and score of the variations? And what do I mean by a score anyway? When I say a score, I don't mean just the notes on paper. I mean the electronic version written with the Musescore software of that score, something that didn't exist before. So we really brought something new, something fresh into the world. It wasn't just another copy of the Goldberg variations. It was the electronic, semantically informed version of the Goldberg variations, which didn't exist before. What can you do with something like that? Volume, please. So what you're seeing there is an iPad app that we produced that's also available for free. And on this iPad app, you can take the score that we made and the recording that we made and watch and listen at the same time, following along with where the notes are. This isn't possible on just pure paper. It's only possible if the computer has some concept of what the notes are that are being played so that it can line up what it hears with what you're supposed to see. So that was one new thing that we did. I love this. This is pure joy. This is something I found on the internet. This is the recording we made. Everything about that is beauty. So she found the recording that we made, and she knew that she could use it to put a video on YouTube where no company was going to come down with a smackdown notice and say, you can't use that, that's our copyright. It says explicitly on the recording, use this for whatever you want. You don't need to ask. If you tell us about it, that's great, but if you don't, that's the purpose of the music anyway. And when I saw that, that made me very happy. Now, a lot of people have used the recording for YouTube videos. That's not the first one. But that one really spoke to me and said, she's joyous. This music really brought something to her life. What else happened with the recording? Well, we were able to make a significant editorial improvement to the quality of the Wikipedia entry about Johann Sebastian Bach's Goldberg variations. If you visit that page, instead of some very bad-sounding MIDI rendition or a badly recorded amateur version of the recording, you now get something that was professionally produced by a world-class pianist in the Teldec studio on Wikipedia. Now, if you browse Wikipedia, you're probably aware that one of the shortcomings of it is typically the poor quality of the media assets, because nobody puts their stuff into the public domain or licenses it in such a way that it can be used on Wikipedia. Now, not nobody, of course. There are a lot of people supporting Creative Commons, but it's still one of the areas where Wikipedia is lacking behind. So we were very happy to see this. This appeared the day after we released the recording. When we looked at the editing history, it's one of the top-ranked editors of Wikipedia. So it was quite a tip of the hat to the project that they did that. So you can visit opengoldbergvariations.org, and you can get the score, get the iPad app, listen to the recording. But right now, if I were you, I would be asking, so you gave something away for free, but how is that really open source? Okay, because open source has a little bit more nuance than that. So I'm going to try and liken it to the 4 software freedoms. So these are the 4 freedoms of open source music. I'm just making this up at this point, so go along with it. There are really 5, but the next one's on the next slide. So freedom number 1, freedom to play or listen to the music. So if it's a score, you can play the score anywhere, any context, any time, without anybody's permission for any reason, commercially or otherwise. Same with the listening. You can broadcast it on radio, you can use it in derivative works. Freedom and ability to edit. This is something that you cannot get on a PDF file from IMSLP. You need that electronic version of the score before you're able to actually change the source code. The freedom to distribute, that's clear, that's Creative Commons. You know, that's covered in that license. And the freedom to remix, also covered in the Creative Commons. And there was one more element that I wanted to bring to the Open Goldberg Variations project, something that I learned from these people. Now, if you're not familiar with that picture in particular, it has to do with my t-shirt and my open software alma mater, the Drupal organization. This is DrupalCon Copenhagen from 2010. This is community. That's what's going on here at this event. Okay, this is community, and one thing that I hadn't seen in classical music was a community of people coming together to make something that they could all share. Now, I'd seen lots of people coming together to play music, but I'd never seen anybody coming together as a community to create a new score, and specifically to create a recording that they could share with each other, even if they weren't specifically playing in it. So that's my concept of open source music. On to the next topic. Notation and technology. Why can't the internet read music? So the open source music has some particular goals in my mind. In part, this great website, IMSLP, is just a library of scans and photocopies. And furthermore, a lot of it is barely useful in terms of performing music. So this beautiful thing right here is the Goldberg Variations, a copy of Bach's manuscript of the Goldberg Variations. So take a moment and look at this. The man had fantastic handwriting. You could actually sit down and play from that. But not really. If you look really closely, it's in a clef that most pianists are not accustomed to. So it's not a bass clef there, it's a G clef. So actually that one's okay. But it'd still be very hard to play from. Here's another one from IMSLP. So that was from IMSLP. This one's also. This is the Czerny edition. No sane pianist would play from this one either because it's basically ruined by Czerny's propaganda. Those are what's in the public domain right now. If you want a clean, modern printed score of the Goldberg Variations that looks good, that doesn't have any editorial bullcrap on it, you would have not found that before the Open Goldberg Variations, and that's what we solved. That's one of the problems that we solved. Furthermore, okay, so I'm taking you to a different website now. This is Musescore.com. Remember, that's the company that makes the notation software, the open source Musescore notation software. They compete with Finale and Sibelius, those are the proprietary alternatives, and they're actually winning the battle quite badly. Sibelius has basically dissolved and Finale is struggling. Not that it's the goal of open source to take down companies, but there's not much innovation in those companies, so they're ripe cherries to pick. So if you go to this and you look at the Open Goldberg Variations page on Musescore.com, there's something very important. You can download that in different formats. So I want to take you on a tour of these different formats. First, there's the Musescore format. That's the format for the software to edit it. Second of all is PDF. That's the same that you could get on IMSLP, but it's perfectly printed, it's very clear, it's easy to read. You can even format it different ways and re-export it according to your needs. Fourth one down is MIDI. Now, anybody who's done anything with music geekery will recognize MIDI as a set of instructions for a machine to produce a sound. So you can actually use MIDI to tell your computer or keyboard or other MIDI-enabled device to actually play music. So it's machine instructions for playing sound. An MP3, of course, is a recording of the piece. That's, in this case, a recording of the MIDI being played. But the middle one's the interesting one, Music XML. So, being a geek crowd, I know that all and every one of you said, oh, XML, of course, the universal format that can be shared between any machine that understands XML. All you need is a schema or, what do you call it, DTT or something like that that they don't use anymore. You just need to know what the XML is supposed to say, and then you can read it. Bingo. Just like HTML5 is a version of XML, this is the universal format for music notation. Unfortunately, it's got limitations, and every program exports it and imports it, but it kind of ends there. You would think that with something so beautiful as Music XML that can do something so practical as print a note on a staff, or even print chords, or even whole pieces, that you would have lots of plugins in your browser on your phone to take those XML files and embed them into other XML-based formats such as HTML5. You'd think. That's my question. Why doesn't the internet read music? Why can't I paste that C that you just saw, which is a text-based XML format, why can't I copy and paste that and put it someplace else? In any program, anywhere in the world, I can't do that right now. Okay, let alone the most important program that I run on a daily basis, my browser. Why can't I do that? It's like the internet has completely forsaken people who read music. There are, you might say, some companies who are addressing the problem, so to speak. This is Noteflight. They're an online music editor. It's the Google Docs of music, if you will. Unfortunately, they've got some fairly obvious limitations. If you look at the fine print, you well know as well as I do that anything in Adobe Flash is not going to be copied and pasted anywhere, or ported anywhere, or anything to anywhere, because that's a load of crap. So what are we missing out on by not having that, aside from forums that are based around the context of the music? Well, Musescore is trying to show us the way. Okay, here's one cool thing that they're able to do, since they have the XML of the music, and therefore the machines know what it's supposed to sound like. They can basically do things like this. This is a YouTube video of the Goldberg variations, synchronized with the score. Another thing that they can do, since music is basically all about context. How many of you studied music and can read music, by the way? So when you were studying music, you probably remember that you really get into the very fine minutia, okay? Between one note and the next note, what do your fingers do, okay? Or how do you breathe? Or, you know, the shape of your mouth as you're singing, or what's your fingering? And you or your teacher is likely to make excruciatingly detailed notation on individual notes or small chunks of phrases or even large phrases, and the context of what they say is as important as what they say. Therefore, you need a way, when discussing music in a public forum online, to have the context of the individual notes. Try doing that on a PDF file. What this is are individual comments that people have made on individual bars or notes of music that you can then, each one spawns an entire discussion thread. It's like a forum where anybody can pick the starting context of the forum, and it can be any 2 or 3 notes that you want. Now that's brilliant, but the whole internet should work that way automatically for music, and it doesn't. I know, I was just like telling you guys, what are you going to do? Go out and build it. I hope so. But it's just, you know, this is my pet peeve. It doesn't, but you could do a lot of things if it did. You could do a lot of music if it did, more than just file sharing, okay? And those are some of the comments that the people gave. What else can you do? With the digital semantic edition of the score, I can do things like I can explain to you that one of the fugues that Kimiko is about to play in the tent next door, that I hope you come and hear, is the C-sharp minor fugue, a grand piece by Johann Sebastian Bach. Thrilling from start to finish. It's got 5 voices. What does that mean? I can show you because I've color-coded the voices in this score. With a PDF copy of that or a scan of Bach's manuscript, I would have had to use coloring crayons to do this. But with the electronic version, it was much easier. There's the theme. It goes bom, 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 bom in some key. Kimiko would laugh at me right now because she has perfect pitch. I do not. And the premise of a fugue is that one voice will do that. The black voice does that first. And then the second voice does the same thing at a different interval, both in time and in space away from the original notes. So it goes up some and does the same thing over again. Third voice, same thing over again. Fourth voice, over again. Fifth voice, same thing over again. And I actually did a demonstration where Kimiko played this at the Glenn Gould Foundation's 80th birthday celebration for Glenn Gould, and she played this fugue, and the voices were color-coded, and we followed her playing in real time on the screen with all of the voices color-coded. I hope that it was interesting to the people who could read music, and maybe gave the people who had never read music before somewhat of an idea how you break apart that mess of dots to actually get down to what the music means. You can only do that with the electronic versions of scores. We also used the same mechanisms and same principles to broadcast the entire 82 minutes of the Goldberg variations to the entire state of Wisconsin on something like 19 different radio stations, covering 55,000 listeners who, while listening on their radio coming through the airwaves, could go to a website, look at the electronic version of the score embedded in a web browser that was perfectly synchronized with what was coming out of their radio. That was fun. And that was a nice technical trick to achieve because every different radio station had a different lag time between 3 and 7.5 seconds that we had to compensate for the synchronization to be good. You can do other things. Everything is context. Music, especially classical music, depends so much on space, time, environment, and the instruments. And a lot of us, like me, I don't live in an apartment that's big enough for a Steinway or a Brusendorfer grand piano to fit in it. So a lot of people go through their life only sometimes having the pleasure of being able to experience a grand piano and the music. And some people didn't have the pleasure of studying music, but with the electronic scores, there are ways that you could actually have live performances of music more often than just going into the concert hall. So here's a video that was made just last week with the Musescore people in conjunction with Steinway.
So let us hear the reunion. If we can get it. All right. Here it comes.
So cool, player piano and all. What they're going to do with that is they're going to make it so that there's a piano set up on a webcam with good microphones, and you're going to be able to browse the Musescore library of scores, cue one up, and then that piano will play it for you. It's a nice idea. You could actually extend that to anybody's piano anywhere at any time, but you need the electronic version of the score, and you need the rights to be able to play it. Open source music. So I posit that if the storage of music data were standardized, aka music XML, and editable, we could have a Wikipedia for sheet music that would enable playing pianos in your home, that would enable score following for radios and live audiences, that would enable a lot of things, copying and pasting music into discussion forums, pedagogy that was context sensitive to the actual notes. It would enable all of that, and it would go far beyond the repository of photocopies that is IMSLP. Not knocking IMSLP. It's a great step forward from what we had. Okay, next question. Is Open Goldberg the new model for the music industry? Because everybody's wondering, how are we going to make recordings as living artists today? Are we going to live from that? It's so expensive. Nobody's buying CDs anymore. Round pieces of plastic are dead, especially the small ones. The big ones, they're making a resurgence. The small ones, nobody wants them anymore. Auto manufacturers are not going to put CD players into cars anymore. Why would anybody ever buy a CD? That's the question. So Kickstarter was part of our model, and we raised $23,000 on Kickstarter for this recording. But what does an Open Goldberg Variations actually cost? Well, I finally hired an accountant and gave him all my little pieces of paper, and we found out. So what Open Goldberg Variations or a similar project costs, first I wanted to show you 76 million US dollars raised over the course of Kickstarter since 2009, $76 million for music. That's a great number. But what does Open Goldberg cost? So if you want to go and get a Teldec Studio, that's 10 grand euros. If you want engineering, a realistic, and editing, and mastering, realistically at least 5,000. Production, that's like printing CDs, so you've got a stack of 1,000 CDs so you can send them out at low cost, and postage and shipping and all of that, at least 5,000. Promotion, well, if you want people to know about it, then you'd better have a budget for advertising. I threw in 10,000 euros for that. That was a hard one to calculate because we got some promotion for free from wonderful people like Slashdot and Boing Boing. Distribution, oh no, that's where the actual shipping and stuff comes in. And then the pianist, well, in our case, the pianist didn't take any money, so I couldn't really calculate that. So you need about 50 grand to do an Open Goldberg Variations in reality. At 50K, the value proposition on both sides has to be really great. So for the musicians and the people working on it, as well as for the people who are paying for it, the sponsors. So in this case, the Kickstart people. So what do they get? I mean, this is a little bit of a rehash, but you get the score and you get the recording under the Creative Commons. You can find them on ISLP. You can find them on Wikipedia. You've got the iPad app that I showed you. You've got the SoundCloud widget. And you've got people like this who find it and find joy in it. So I think that the value proposition on the side of the backers, I think it really, it's good. So if we have enough backers to get to the 50,000 mark, I think they're getting their money's worth. And for the pianist, it was definitely worth it. And for the other people involved with the project, Anne-Marie Sylvestre, the producer, she volunteered. If we do it again, we're going to try and pay her something. I think it's only fair. But she was very happy with the outcomes as well. But there's one more element. There's one more element of value that was really important about the Open Goldberg Variations, and that's the sense of ownership. Not only did we ask people for money, we also asked them to proofread and help us edit the score to make it good and help us make various decisions along the way. And at the bottom of most of the variations, we gave people a chance to put a personal dedication to that variation. And that made it meaningful to them, to those people. And actually, if you read the book from cover to cover and read all the dedications, you know, you might get a little tear in your eye because it's really sentimental and it's really beautiful what they read, what people wrote. So that's the value proposition of Open Goldberg. Is it a model for the entire industry? Certainly not. You're never going to see all new recordings going through Kickstarter, and you're certainly not going to see all new recordings being put directly into the public domain. Are we going to do it again? You bet. And that's where it comes the question, what comes next? So a couple things come next for the Open Goldberg project, aside from the performance at 8 o'clock in the big tent. Today, I'm very happy to announce we started another Kickstarter. The Kickstarter has two parts. The first part has to do with fractal animations set to the music of the Open Goldberg Variations. So I showed you that wonderful girl dancing with joy. But another person who also found great joy in the Open Goldberg variations was an artist in Switzerland who makes animations using Mandelbrot fraction equations and some rendering software. And what he did is he went and he made 32, that's the number of pieces in the Goldbergs, 32 different videos of fractal fly-throughs, these mesmerizing landscapes which infinitely unwind with different color schemes, different patterns, lighting effects, and everything. Each one inspired by and matching the mood of the various variations. I said, dude, that's great. Why don't you make a DVD of that and people can buy the whole thing and watch it at home? And I suggested that because my parents-in-law, who really avoid the computer at all costs, reported to us walking upstairs every morning, several days in a row, turning on the computer, going on YouTube to watch the examples that he had there, because they were so thrilled to have something to see while they were listening to the music. I was like, wow, if my 70-something-year-old parents-in-law are going to do that, then there are other people out there who will like that. So we're kickstarting that project. That's a DVD. And we're also announcing this fall a 12-concert tour for Kimiko Ishizaka called the 12 Tones of Bach. So those of you who are geeky in the classical music sense will see a couple things in the 12 tones of Bach. First of all, 12-tone music is not what you associate with Bach. It's more what you associate with the bleep, blop, blop, bleep, bleep, blop music of the New Viennese and 20th century. And you'll also notice that there are 12 different keys in the well-tempered clavier. And that's what it has to do with. So the 12 Tones of Bach tour is a 12-concert tour, each one representing one of the keys of the well-tempered clavier, and it's the kickoff for our next big project, which is based on the model of the Open Goldberg variations. But first, let's watch the trailers. This is for the DVD. So we've been sending the early versions of this DVD out to people, and we got one report back that the guy we sent it to was able to engage his 4-year-old son in quite a hefty debate on, after watching it with him, on whether that was more fun to watch or SpongeBob. But they're actually really mesmerizing. I'm quite happy with the result, and I hope that people find pleasure and joy in those too. I don't think there's actually any product like that out there. Here's the second part. Here's the 12-concert tour. Stallman. So there's a couple really great stops in that tour that I just want to point out to you. First of all, we're going to DrupalCon Prague, and we're going to, which is going to be really fun. And we're going to do a session called Bach to the Future. We're going to talk about the 1.23 gigawatts of Bach that Kimiko delivers when she plays. And they're going to cart the piano out into the open space and just play music for music's sake. Then we're going to the Busendorfer factory in Wiener Neustadt, Austria, outside of Vienna. And in the showroom of the Busendorfer factory, where they have about 100 beautiful Busendorfer pianos in front of a live audience, both in person and on the internet via live streaming, Kimiko is going to choose the instrument that she's going to take to the recording studio to record the well-tempered clavier. And we're going to ask the audience, what they hear and the differences in the pianos and all of that. That's where the Kickstarter is, by the way, if you want to go get a DVD. And then the third one, you might have seen one, Manifold Studio in North Carolina. That one I'm really excited about because I found the studio and I saw the picture of it, and it's this beautiful space, and I was like, oh, I want to be in there. Tell me about the studio. And the guy who had posted the picture was a guy named Michael Tiemann. Anybody ring a bell? Michael Tiemann? Michael Tiemann, right. Who's heard of the G++ compiler? He wrote it. Who's heard of Red Hat? Vice President. In between those 2 points, the G++ and the and Red Hat, came a company called Cygnus Software, the first company to ever have an open source enterprise support model, which then they sold to Red Hat. So he made Cygnus Software, sold the company to Red Hat. What does he do with all his money? He goes and builds a recording studio. I love this man. It's brilliant. So I said, I have to hook up with this guy, and we're doing an all-day recording workshop in the Manifold Studio. Then we're having an audience come in for a concert with Kimiko playing that'll be broadcast on the internet. And then people can go to dinner with Kimiko afterwards and ask, things like, do your fingers get tired, and how many hours do you practice a day, and the great questions that she gets after every concert. So yes, the next project is the well-tempered clavier in the mold of the Open Goldbergs, but we couldn't just do the same thing over again. So how are we going to do that? We're going to make it bigger and better, and we're going to do that with partners. Sure, Musescore is on board. They have to be. They're going to be doing the score, and they're going to come out with Musescore 2.0 just for the occasion. Anne-Marie Sylvestre, great producer from Montreal, she's on board. Busendorfer's on board. We're going to go choose the piano in the factory. Grin, the publisher, they're going to publish the new score. IMSLP, of course, you'll be able to find the stuff there. We've already booked the Teldec studio, and here's a big one. Just like it warmed my heart to get Grin Verlag as the publisher for the music, we have a record label. We have a record label, Parma Recordings, who will release it on their Nirvana label, who, when asked the question, do you want to bring out a recording of the well-tempered clavier, something that's been recorded several hundred times before, in an open source way with a public domain version that anybody can copy and distribute anyway, and that you can also download for free on the internet and find on every single streaming service around the world, and you won't get any money for any of that? They were like, sure, that sounds fun. And it's my goal to make that the best-selling recording, best-selling, not just the best downloaded, but the best-selling recording of 2014 in the classical space. Stay tuned, I have some plans for that. And we have another exciting partner, Dave Conservatoire. Anybody know that website? It's new. Dave Conservatoire is a collection of how-to tutorials on music theory, building up from like which note is lower, which note is higher, to intervals, to circles of fifths. And he's signed up to do tutorials about the structures and the history and the importance of the well-tempered clavier, because I have to tell you, the well-tempered clavier of Bach, it's called the New Testament, or is it the Old Testament? One of the testaments of classical music, because it's so fundamentally important to the development of Beethoven, Brahms, everybody who came after that. Chopin, who Kimiko is going to play today, has a direct connection. She's going to be playing Chopin preludes, which were directly inspired by Bach's preludes and fugues of the well-tempered clavier. Massive influence of this piece. He's going to talk about that and make tutorial videos of that. And when I called the guy, when I wrote the guy, it was really great. I found the website And I knew immediately I wanted Dave Conservatoire as a partner. So I filled out the contact form and said, hey, going to do this project. You might have heard of Open Goldberg. Do you want to be on board? Called the guy, and he was like, this is so exciting. I only decided to do Dave Conservatoire in part because of the success of Open Goldberg. That inspired me, and that's why all of my videos are Creative Commons licensed. So that was really nice. That's going to begin on September 24th at the Beethoven Festival in Bonn, Germany. And every single one of the 12 concerts we do is also going to be broadcast via Google Hangouts on Air studio mode. Who knows what that means? Google Hangouts on Air, Google Hangouts. Who's used one of those for communication? So it's video conferencing software where lots of people can join, and it's really easy to set up. And social as well because of Google+. Google Hangouts on Air is a broadcast-only version of that, where the people who are in the Hangout get broadcast on YouTube's infrastructure so that an infinite number of people can watch in real time. And studio mode is the answer to the other mode, which is voice mode. So if you know anything about voice transmission, they do banding and compression so that the range of the human voice sounds really good, and things that are above that don't, so that it's really good for talking. But they have a studio mode where it's actually a higher band rate and suitable for music and stereo separation. Sounds great. So you'll be able to listen to Kimiko's 12 performances, including selecting the Busendorfer, including the session at DrupalCon, live via Google Hangouts on Air. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is what comes next for Open Goldberg and Open Source Bach. Thank you very much, and I think we probably have 5 minutes for questions. More? 10. 10 minutes for questions. Thank you. So,
hi, it sounds like a lovely project. I actually wanted to ask you more a bit about how you see this engaging with the future of the industry, because we're obviously in a situation now where traditional publishing, you know, whether it's music, writing, journalism, software, you know, we're in a tradition where traditional publishing is having problems.
yes.
Like everywhere. And partly because of their failure to engage with the internet, where a lot of the Creative Commons things, Kickstarter, is doing a good job in seeing how we might get creative people to get their work out there, but I'm not sure it's doing a great job in answering the question of how creative people eat and pay their rent. And Kimiko hasn't been paid for this. I see, and you know, but we're still in a novel stage. You know, this is a new thing. How do you see what you're doing as part of the new future of the industry?
So it's a difficult question, and there's a distinct race to the bottom in terms of what people can earn with recorded music today. So go Google, you know, any of the royalty rates on Spotify, Pandora, etc., and you quickly see that there's no model in that where musicians live off their royalties for their recordings and can pay their rent from that. So in Kimiko's case, if I'm going to be brutally honest about the value that she as a pianist got from the Open Goldberg variations, I'll break it into financial and non-financial value. Financial value, she got most everything that she needed to do to make this recording paid for. We went above the budget that the fans sponsored us at, but we did it on purpose. We could have made it within the budget, but it wouldn't have been the Teldex studio, and there wouldn't have been any marketing around it, and we would have cut some corners, and because I work in the software industry, I earn a little bit more money than the average guy on the street, so therefore I could sponsor it myself and make sure that we made the recording that we really wanted to. But we could have done it in the budget that we were given. So Kimiko got to make this recording without any strings attached, with all the time in the world to prepare for it and record it exactly the way she wanted to in a world-class studio on a world-class piano. That right alone made that experience for her worthwhile. She also got enormous publicity. And for her, in her stage of the career, that was also very important. Generations of people coming to the Goldberg variations for the first time and turning to their trusted source of Wikipedia are hearing Kimiko Ishizaka's version of the Goldberg variations, even before Glenn Gould's. That's crazy stuff, because for 50 years now, you can't play the Goldberg variations without somebody saying, yeah, but that's not Glenn Gould. It's almost impossible. It's like you're instantly compared to the guy. So all of that was important. Our hope is that if we had done this slightly differently, all of the money that comes from CD sales and Spotify and iTunes and Amazon, etc., could have gone straight to Kimiko Ishizaka. The way we structured it is that it goes straight to Open Goldberg, the nonprofit entity that's registered in Nevada that has its mission statement being to create open source works of art. What that means is that whether it's Kimiko or whether it's other artists, we'll be able to support more people in the future to do similar stuff. That's okay with Kimiko. For other artists, they could have made the decision to have that money flow to them. So they get the recording financed. If they go over their goal, maybe they get a little bit extra. And then the royalties, even if it's an open source public domain work, you can still sell physical copies of the CD, and companies like Spotify still don't have a concept of free music, so they'll still pay you a royalty for it. Same with iTunes. There's no such thing as, I mean, if you upload it to iTunes, they're going to sell it for you. Somebody's going to buy it for the convenience of being able to one-click get it onto their iPod, and we actually get some money from those channels. But I'll be honest with you, it's a race to the bottom in terms of money. And you know, there are American companies lobbying American Congress right now to even make it so that the royalty rates are lower. It's a difficult situation. I don't think that recording music is a profitable business. So you have to have some other reason to engage the people. And our reason is, let's create this body of open source material so that someday that vision of the musical internet that I have, where the internet does read music, where you can copy and paste notes from one program to another, it'll have something to actually work with. Okay, I hope that helped. Somebody else had a question? They went away. Come on up.
I'm just curious, why not the harpsichord? Why not the harpsichord?
Why not the harpsichord?
More obvious quite in tuning than a piano for Bach.
So why not the harpsichord? Simply put, because Kimiko plays the piano, not the harpsichord.
Okay. Perfect.
There was absolutely no bias against the instrument, and there was no pretense of making it historically informed. We decided that people enjoy listening to the Goldberg variations on the modern piano, so why not make a recording of it? Go ahead.
Thank you for doing that. I also wondered since years why the internet doesn't speak music. And we should have, well, now it's Bach, okay? But there are some other composers, and we should have more compositions in this format. How can we support that? Or is there a way to help?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And the person on earth who's done the most thinking about that I've ever met is named Thomas Bante. And he's the CEO and founder of Musescore and runs the open source project and the company. And he and I have talked about that a lot. And we would both like to see in some way a crowdsourcing mechanism whereby people can take the PDFs that we have all these open source photocopies, public domain photocopies of these great works. It's not like it's hard to get your hands on, at least visually, the music. What's hard is getting it into the Musescore format. So we're thinking about ways to crowdsource that, but unlike Wikipedia, where almost everybody can type because the keyboards are well suited for it, and everybody speaks a language and can type, you know, in one of the Wikipedia languages, so almost everybody can be a contributor. The actual skills for doing notated music are really, really rare. So rare that we're like in danger of losing the ability to do that really properly. So you have to learn how to use a software like Wikipedia, or Musescore rather, and then you have to crowdsource it. So it's a tough problem, but it might look something like that if Thomas is successful in building it. Good, looks like there are no more questions. Thank you very much, and see you hopefully at 8 o'clock in the next tent over for Kimiko Ishizaka playing Bach and Chopin.